We got enough numbers to choke a horse, if horses ate numbers, which I'm pretty sure they don't. Hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker and Residential Sales Manager for ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 134. So, I have spent all morning watching other people's videos. Tina had an hour and a half talking about real estate, and I shamelessly stole half of her slide deck for screenshots for you, my beloved audience, and we'll be going over that. After that, I listened to an hour of a gentleman by the name of Barry Habib, who tends to be more the counselor to the lenders out there, and he had some interesting information. Not as good as Tina, but who is. And so we're going to start going over a lot of stuff. Now, this one is probably going to go long. That's your warning. All right. Also, I'm going to be showing a lot of stuff on the screen that is going to be very hard to see if you are watching this on your phone. All right. I will try to explain to you what the slide is showing, but because of the graphics and everything, you might not be able to really see the fine details, right? So if you're in a position to watch this on your computer or a tablet, or some of you who like to watch me on your big screen TVs so you can see 4 feet of Ray, go for it. Go ahead and pause now. Go over to that. I'll wait for you. See, that wasn't too hard, now was it? So let's just talk about the numbers, or let's just catch up on these real quick. This October, on the 13th through 16th, the very first of the multiple lawsuits going against NAR is going to hit the courts. And for all of you guys who are paying attention in Georgia to election fiascos and stuff like that, that's cute. All right, you guys just keep going, do that. For the rest of us who are concerned about other things in the world, mostly our lives, we're going to be, paying attention to that particular NAR lawsuit. Monday, I was in a meeting / clash / oh my God, what's happening to us get together over in Scottsdale, and I was amazed by how many gasps there were from the audience, because apparently people are not tracking this as they should be. Talked about how did we get here, and you guys have been paying attention to this. You've heard me rant before. How we got here, how these cases are going to come down, how they're going to turn out. Got some really interesting numbers, like $41 billion worth of lawsuits. And between the National Association of Realtors and the large national brokerages that are included in this, you're looking at $41 billion of debt potentially hitting companies worth a grand total of $10 billion in value. So what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. If those suits go as worst case scenario, then you'll see a huge judgment levied against National Association of Realtors and these various brokerages. You'll see them appealed. Eventually, something's going to come down the pike, and all these big brokerages you're going to see are going to go bankrupt. They will declare bankruptcy, and then they'll go back doing exactly what they were doing before with a couple little modifications. All right? Because ultimately, when you're that big, you are too big to fail. You declare bankruptcy, say sorry, we don't have your money, and start all over again. So now that will be interesting. I'm more concerned about the trickle down of this, things that are going to impact things later on downstream, especially for first-time home buyers. They're going to take it in the shorts. Seriously. The people who are interested in promoting this lawsuit are interested in making money. That would be the attorneys. And people who are interested in getting some money back, that would be potential sellers who feel like they've been damaged by this, by this whole thing. And ultimately, the buyers who have never had to pay for their own real estate agents before, who have never actually had to come out of pocket to have an experienced guide in the jungle that is real estate, are suddenly going to be out there floundering around. And my personal theory is the very large brokerages, the builders especially, and the Department of Justice, because they don't know no better, or want to turn real estate into a very large car lot situation where you will drive onto the lot, you will drive over to one of these large brokerages, and you will only see the houses that they have for sale. And if you don't find a house for sale on the lot, you'll drive over to the next lot. But you show up at house lot A, they're not going to show you any other houses in the valley. They're only going to show you what they have. All right. And then when you want that, it's going to be like you're buying a house from the car salesman. Right? The car salesman is not going to sit there and negotiate your price down for you. You will have to learn those skill sets. All right, so you're going to have to learn how to negotiate. You're going to have to learn how to navigate the documents, find out where the hiccups are, where the problems are, what makes your earnest money refundable. Not that any of these guys are going to use a contract that's going to let your buyer's earnest money be refundable, mind you. All right, because you're going to be using in-house contracts now. An in-house contract, it's all on the seller side. It's all going to be on that side because you're not their client anymore. So, and this is, there's a little bit of part of me right now that says, well, this is what you get. This is what you get, boys and girls. All right. We tried. It was a good fight. But on the flip side, I could see at least 3 ways out of this thing for smaller brokerages. I'm not going to say them because we are man, I am really spun up today, aren't I? We are entering a period of disruption. And much like the comet hitting the planet, if you're a small little mouse-like creature who can adapt really quickly to the new environment, you have a really good chance of thriving here. If you're a big bloated company that cannot move as fast, you're going to have a really hard time. All right. And if you're one of those people who just have their heads in their sand going, oh no, we'll be fine. All right. You're going to die out. And honestly, there's enough agents out here who can't change their patterns of behavior year to year. All right. They're still out there going, oh no, it's a buyer's market. It's like, no, it's not a buyer's market. Where have you been? People who aren't been paying attention, they're going to die out. So I think we're going to see a lot less part-timers, and loss of a lot of small brokerages, especially brokerages that are run by, hate to say it, but older people who are past the point of adapting. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of younger people out there who can't adapt because, hey, it wasn't in my textbook and I don't know what to do. And there's not a lot of older people who they've gone through so many things. This is like, okay, new change. All right. We're going to discuss that on one of these slides coming up. So that was Monday, this big conversation. And from just listening to the people in the room, listening to the comments in the room, that was pretty much the breakdown of like the 50 people we had crammed into that place. There was, oh, no, this isn't going to happen to, well, I guess I'm just going to go back to selling cars or whatever. So we'll see what happens with that. But what is going on today? Let's take a look at today's numbers and we'll start there. So these are numbers that I pulled on August 23rd. All right, actives this week were 11,446, up 40 from the week before. This is like the third week in a row we're getting more active listings, which pairs with our seasonality right now. New listings were 1,725, down 92. Ray, how can that be if we have less new listings? Well, we didn't have as many go under contract as we should. All right, so we had 2,046. It's up a little bit, but not where our normals. And our closings are 1,386, which is pretty much, common for the week before the end of the month. All right, coming soon to an MLS near you is 567. Let's go down and take a look at the Cromford report numbers. Supply ticked up a little bit. All right, we're at 48.4, just a smudge. All right, demand 77.1, also fluctuating. And leaving as a Cromford report, we're back under 160, boys and girls. We're at 159.2. All right, the market for the seller side is starting to soften. The market is starting to move a little bit more over to the buyer side. That is mostly because less people are able to purchase at these interest rates. Remember the slide from last week. Remember what we looked at there. Okay, lock that in your mind. We're going to be addressing it later on when we get to the Tina stuff. All right, and broken down into the regional areas and stuff like that, we have Chandler still leading the pack at 308. Okay, definitely still seller's market, but they are still dropping down. But we're starting to pop back up. Gilbert has popped back up just a little bit, but they're up. All right, 1% at 212. Cave Creek's up 12%, and Buckeye up 11% month over month. These are our three winners. Buckeye has moved out. What is about just a month ago when they were at 108, balanced market. You know, they're moving up nicely. A lot of construction going on, a lot of things happening out there in Buckeye, and a lot of affordable housing. First-time homebuyers are really moving into Buckeye hard. All right, and that is because of the building and because of everything else, and because a lot of those houses were built later. I mean, think about this one. Let me get my face up there so you can really see the expressions on my eyes. Look into my eye. All right, what's going on? When you look at Buckeye, remember, cities fill in. Buckeye 10 years ago wasn't even there. A couple farms, a couple trailer courts, a meth lab, that kind of stuff, right? There wasn't a lot going on out there in Buckeye. All right, since then, with all the construction, your average house in Buckeye was probably built in the last 3 or 4 years, which means the first-time home buyer picked it up in the last 3 or 4 years. All right, which means they've had the last 3 or 4 year interest rates. See where I'm going with this? All right. So they're not going to be as interested in selling out of those places. All right. So most of the stuff going into Buckeye right now that people can buy are going to be those new builds. All right. Now, that sort of dovetails over here into Tina. And you guys know I love talking about Tina because she is probably one of the smartest people in real estate in Arizona right now. She's one of the few people that I would just like look at. And yeah, talk to her. She's a smart one. All right. So she leads off with a little I told you so dance that I'm never, ever going to sit there and deny anybody a chance to do the I told you so dance. But Kay Schiller has finally come out and said everything that we've been telling you for the last 4 to 5 months, all right? Look at this. Look at this. All right? Put me right over there. Goldman Sachs housing predictions, all right? They no longer expect U.S. home prices to decline in 2023. We have literally been saying this since January. Yeah, mostly February. All right, last week of January, we started things tricking up. All right, but because the way all these people look at their stuff, the way they do their numbers, they do 3-month moving averages from 2 months ago. That does not include this month. You go back 2 months. This is August. They go to June or July to June, and then they look at June, May, and April. All right, they are that far in arrears when it comes to looking back. Right, a lot of people use the example of they're driving the car by looking in the rearview mirror. All right, so. And you are looking from where they used to say Goldman Sachs predicts Phoenix housing market could crash to 2008 levels. These 4 cities could see double-digit home price drops, Goldman Sachs, right? Trust me, I knew this because people were sending these articles to me the morning they dropped. Ray, is this true? You know, oh my God, do I need to sell? No, you don't need to sell. Sit. You're good. Sell your house when your life tells you need to sell, not because of Goldman Sachs over here. Seriously. All right? But now they turned around. Here we are, August 18th. The Danny Romero, reporter. Sassy little picture right there. I'm sure she's well qualified. It's Columbia School of Journalism to speak on all things real estate. Why? Because that's the desk they assigned her when she showed up at Yahoo Finance. All right? So there she is at Yahoo Finance, and she's finally pieced the whole thing together. All right, by repeating what Goldman Sachs has been saying. All right, so, and just to show a little bit of Tina's humor, she's got the I can't hear you, and then say it louder for people in the back. All right, you guys got that? That's what we're looking at. Now, we talked about this last week. We covered out of where we were at. If I had the chart and I could show you the chart right now, you would see that our house prices that did correct and did come back a little bit bottomed out in January. And we've been moving up ever since. We were 8% over the beginning of this year than we are right now. We have gone up 8%. If you bought a house, all right, in January for $400,000, it's now worth $432,000. All right, winning. So, but that drop that happened, a lot of people attribute to interest rates, but there's a couple other things that happen. All right, I want to show you this chart that she shared with us, because this one's really cool. This is owner-occupiers are back to normal. All right, normal share of owner-occupants. Those are somebody who is going to buy a house and live in it year-round. We're not talking open door and offer pad. We're not talking your second homeowners who fly in from Canada or Michigan or whatever and just take up space and get in my restaurants during the winters. All right, and we're not talking about the investors who are just purchasing to rent out. Right, we're talking people who want to live there. We're back to a normal of 76%. Right, this is really good, because as you can see right here, she's got the greatest example. Is okay, back here, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, right, and into 2020. This is us at a house party. And everybody's having a good time. We're chatting and seeing old friends, drinking wine and maybe flipping burgers on the grill. And life is grand. Everybody's happy. All right. And then the frat boys from Wall Street show up. Now, if you notice, we were actually getting a little bit of pushback here, right? Because here comes those eyebears. That's that new guy at the party. He's like somebody's friend. Doesn't really know all the little landmines, you don't ask Joey how he's doing because his wife just died, so, he doesn't know that, and they come in, they sort of disrupt a little bit of things, all right, and then you see the investors, and this is your BlackRock money. These are all those people you're seeing coming in who decided they were going to buy houses, turn them into, straight into rentals. Now, nobody ever says anything bad about these particular people but me, so let me say something bad about second home and buyers. If you can see on this chart, second home buyers went up too. They actually lag a little bit behind the iBuyers and the institutional buyers, because these are the guys, they're not really primary home investors, but they're sitting there, they're professionals. They're reading the Wall Street Journal and they go, oh look, investors are moving into Phoenix. We should get a second home down there. It will run the prices up. And that's exactly what happened. It ran the prices up, and the actual owner-occupant dropped as low as 62% at one point. Right? Between the iBuyers, which doesn't actually take a house out of the market. Remember, they're supposedly buying a house and then flipping it back out 3 seconds later. All right? But these investors and these second home buyers, all right, with help from the iBuyers, but remember, they're flipping it back into the market. So this guy buys a house here, you see it in the market a month later, usually with an inflated price. All right. And boom, there you go. And then market rate goes up and you see all the investors starting to pull out. iBuyers, gone. Looking at you, Zillow. Oh, wait, I can't look at you because you're gone. All right. And now we're back into this relatively healthy, where the investors and iBuyers are down here at 12.7. All right. And over here are the regular owner-occupiers at 76.8. Notice Tina never calls out the second homes. I wonder what that is. Maybe she has one. Maybe she wants to have one. I don't know. It'll be a salacious little secret about Tina, I think. But so this run up right here in 2021 to the first part of 2022, when those guys came in, that's when we saw the real serious super crash. I mean, it's just run up in prices. All right. Now, that being said, this correction is sort of good because it chased off those investors. All right. But let's see what happens. I do know that rents for rentals have maintained flat for about 2 quarters now, which is really interesting, which means if those people, investors who thought they were going to turn around and be making more money because rents were going to go up, now they're holding out. All right. They're not going to be getting that. So maybe they'll put it back on the market when their returns aren't what they think it's going to be. That would be cool. But let's keep an eye on them. All right, next chart. Next chart I snagged. Which one is this one? Oh, this is cool. This is proposed legislation to stop these guys, the investors, all right? And this is, all I can say is Senate legislation to stop investment. What party do you think is right in this one? Yes, you should recognize these names. If not, shame on you. Pay more attention to your politics, right? But they are making the proposal that the share investor purchases made by large investors with portfolios of 100 properties or more grew from 14% in September 2020 to 26% in September 2021. Large investors are also particularly concentrated in certain markets and neighborhoods. So they quote Phoenix in here. 21% of purchases went to large investors in 2021, all right? And their purchases also typically focus on smaller, more affordable homes, taking critical starter homes that could otherwise go to first-time home buyers out of the market. Their response is they are going to take away a whole bunch of tax benefits from people who have more than 100 properties in an area. And basically, they're not going to come straight out and try to outlaw and stuff like that, but they're going to make it financially harder. I got a love-hate relationship with this. All right. Personally, I could see having institutional flippers. You flip more than 5 properties in a year. Guess what? We're gonna double your your taxes on your profits. But my biggest concern with this is what saved us in 2008 and 2009 when the crash was happening was these institutional buyers coming in and picking up houses. I'm literally calling people up and going, I got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $40,000. Your total mortgage rate on this at today's rates will be $800 for the rest of your life. Very few people actually snapped on that. Very, very few people actually snapped on it. Oh no, I'm afraid of the real estate market. I'm going to sit here and keep renting my 3-bedroom, 2-bath right down the street for $1,200 a month. All right, go kid. Go ahead and do that. All right. But institutional investors, they come in, they actually stabilized our floor. They created that hard floor right there. And I got my numbers mixed up on that because it was, you could rent out a 3-2 for $800 at that point. So you're spending $40,000 for an asset that you could rent out for $800, $6,400 a year, which is, work that math out. That's a really good rate of return, boys and girls. And that's what those institutional investors came in and did. Now we're seeing the dark side of that. All right. And that's what this legislation is supposed to fight. So this one isn't going anywhere this year. Especially it's not going to pass this year. Next year, we're going to go into an election year. Nothing happens in an election year. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere, but it's interesting to see Congress is looking at the problem. So like I said, a lot of stuff to cover. So there is a whole bunch of conversation about where interest rates are at, whether or not we are on team recession or team optimism. All right. And that's the big unknown floating around out there in the cosmos right now. Are we hitting a recession? Are we not hitting a recession? And you can see the two tribes form up on this. Lenders and real estate agents tend to be on the recession side. It's going to happen. Why? Because of technical things to do when certain bonds invert over other ones that are traditionally lagging. And when you see this flip, I'm not saying that it always happens, but it's always happened. Right? Should have stole this picture. For you guys of a certain age, Buttercup and Wesley walking into the forest, and she says, nobody's come out from this forest alive. And he goes, oh, people only say that because nobody ever has, and they go into the forest or the swamp. I think that it was a fire swamp or whatever. Anyways, so, that's sort of where we at. Hey, guess what? Our rates are inverted. We're going into a recession. Oh, you're just saying that because it always has. So everybody's really tracking right now. The final domino before they've run out of excuses to not call this recession a recession is unemployment. Right? Our unemployment is actually doing really good, boys and girls. We'll talk about that later. But from everything the Fed has been saying, the Fed is not going to start changing up the interest rates until they see as many as unemployed Americans as they want to see. Sick, but hey, they're bankers. They're smart people. I'm just this real estate guy over here, right? But if that kicks loose and when that kicks loose, what are our interest rates going to start coming into? All right. A lot of people are saying once we see the interest rates back in the 6s, you're going to start seeing things happen. All right. Buyers are going to suddenly get back in the game. Remember, over here on our inventory side, right here, this is our supply right now with poor buyers. All right. This is how many buyers we got right now with these interest rates. You could see this hit 100 again, and if that stays at 48, it won't, because those houses will come off the market faster. We'll see contracts go up. Same amount of new listings hitting every week, but now more are going under contract, which means active goes even lower. Remember back in the day when I used to say we have 4,000 active listings? We could see that again. All right. And then this number goes stratospheric again. All right. That's what could happen with that. All right. And I'm a little concerned about that because although I have my house, okay, I'm happily having my house with my interest rate that starts in the 2s because I listened to myself when I said refinance. I'm really concerned what happens at that particular point if we suddenly get that rush in, because remember, demand gets built up. It's like water behind a dam. All right. People who want to buy a house because the 2 kids cannot live in the same bedroom anymore and they both need their own bedrooms. That demand does not go away just because you can't afford it. It just gets put off. If you suddenly see, because the interest rates go down, that now we can afford that house, they're going to go out and suddenly buy that house. Right? Takes it off the market, right? Which means more people start bidding on the next house, so on and so forth. Rinse, repeat. All right. So that's my concern with what's going to happen on this thing. And we're not looking at it. Tina floated this. It's interesting to think about. We could have a national recession that does not impact Arizona as bad. Our employment rate is at 3.6 per her numbers, right? And she went through 4 pages of companies moving to Arizona in the next 3 to 5 years, all right? Bringing in semiconductors, battery manufacturing plants. People are moving their offices here. Discount Tire is building a new headquarters to be here, all right? And we're going to be building rocket ships, all right? Virgin Galactic is opening up a manufacturing plant to build their Delta Flyer. I'm not a big fan of Virgin because, hey, I'm a SpaceX kind of guy, all right? I like my things reusable, all right? But we're going to be building rocket ships here, boys and girls. This is projected out for the next 3 to 5 years just to get these moves completely in, all right? So it's going to get, if anything, we might actually get to that point where your economy starts doing poorer because you don't have enough unemployed people to take new jobs. Oh my God, people start paying their employees more to keep them. And if you remember from last week, that's one of the 3 solutions we needed to bring housing under control is raising income. Right? But we could have a situation where enough of the nation is having a recession. Maybe enough of the states that the Fed cares about is having a recession, where they start doing, the interest rate game, right? Throwing more money out there to try to get us out of a recession. And since we're not in a recession, we get all the benefits of a anti-recession spending and none of the detriment of being in a recession. That would be cool. That would be really cool. So But we will have to see what's happening. Number one problem we got going on right now is, because it's so expensive to buy. And we covered a little bit about the generation wars, all right? I want to show you something. And if you're under the age of 30, 35, pay attention to this slide, all right? Let me tell you what your grandparents had to work through, all right? In the mid-70s through the early 80s, all right, your average boomer that you snark at, all right, was in their 20s during that time period. These are the mortgage rates that they were dealing with at the time. Okay, so yeah, oh my God, we have these interest rates. Da 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 da. It's like, yeah, so did your grandparents. So did your parents. All right, but what they also had in the middle of the whole thing is they had 3 separate recessions to deal with. Your average Zoomer and your younger millennials have not been in a recession in their adult life. They don't know what that is. They think the last 10 years is normal. All right. And as you can see here, these are the rates that they grew up seeing their parents get. How fascinating is that? All right. So at a certain frame, from like my generation back, we've seen 6s before. We've seen 7s before. All right. Some of these people have seen teens before. All right. But just breaking it out by demographic here was a great chart. Okay, over here, here's Generation X. This is my generation in our 20s when we were supposedly getting into the swing of things. It's one to look at. We had our 3 recessions. We had this big freaking crash right here of '08 that we saw happen. All right, and we saw interest rates come down. When I bought in '04, I want to say we bought it on an 80/20, which is not used anymore, so don't think you can get one. But our 80% I think was at 5.75 and our 20% was at 6.25. All right, and we paid down to get that one. So as you can see, Generation X, we had our 3 recessions. Okay, and we've been doing pretty good since then because of the craziness and everything, the way they do things. All right, and the millennials and everything started coming in. Okay, they're used to seeing below 5% interest rates, and they've had one micro recession right here, and that was COVID. Just that. All right, and COVID is such an outlier, you don't even want to call it a recession. It's not a true recession. It was a man-made, complete inability to function. All right, and notice how quickly we got out of that. So, but so in the mortal words of your grandparents, kid, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait until you see these interest rates and a recession. You're going to be moving back home with mom and dad. Oh, by the way, if you're mom and dad and you're afraid the kids are going to show up real quick, call me. We'll get you into a smaller house so there's no room for them to move back to. Just saying. All right. So, okay, let's break this chart down because I like this one. All right. I have another one on here too that I swear I saved, but this is coming down right here. And yes, she used the Zillow calculator on this, but if you can see it there, this is a home price of $450,000, very close to what I did last week. Okay, at she used an interest rate of 6.3 something or other. Right, that total payment of $3,000, pretty much what I was saying last week. All right. She goes a little bit farther, okay? At the end of your first year, you're going to have paid $4,644 towards your principal, which is paying down the loan that you took, all right? Remember, when you pay principal, you can supposedly get it back when you sell on the other side. But here's a term that we do not talk about that often. I certainly don't because I don't like this thing, right? But the mortgage interest tax deduction, right? If you borrowed that amount, 90% of $450,000, your first year's interest that you were paying is going to be $25,656. All right. Now, as your mortgage interest tax deduction, what you do is you get to deduct that from your income, all right, to get your taxable income when you do taxes. All right. So you could sit there and say, I just bought a house. right? I'm paying $3,000 a month, right, to have a place to live in. Of that $3,000 a month, over the course of a year, I'm getting $4,644 back to me in principal equity in that house, and I'm going to have a $25,000 tax deduction, all right, on your removed from my taxable income. And then you multiply that by whatever your tax rate is. That's the addition on top of that. Now, a lot of the old-time agents really, they can do these numbers at the drop of their hat because they learned how to do real estate back here, all right, when that was the number one reason to buy a house back when these interest rates were that high, because you had that really nice tax, break. And for a certain generation of retirees, you might want to consider getting some sort of tax write-off like that because you can't declare the kids anymore because, hey, the kids don't live with you anymore. So that was interesting little math on that. The other thing is, and every lender, every real estate agent can go into the appreciation, how much that the house is going to grow in value, this and that and the other thing. Talk. So I'm gonna keep this chart on most of my things. All right. This is what's going to happen with these interest rates if they start changing it out. All right. Based on what we have going on, a $400,000 price, right? 5% down at 7.625. That's what we're going to be at before we start throwing on whatever the HOA is. All right. As that interest rate's coming down, more and more people are going to be able to buy. All right. Well, I really thought this one was going to be longer than that. Let's see. Is there anything else that I missed? More arguments for why there's not going to be a crash. Number one is that things with crashes happen is that when you have a seller in crisis, right, and as opposed to an inconvenienced. All right, let's talk about what the difference between a crisis is and an inconvenience is. Right, and this is literally a conversation I probably have about every other week about non-real estate related stuff. So, you know what most people's problem is? They don't know what a problem is. They're being inconvenienced, and they elevate it in their head to think of it as a crisis. All right, so let's talk about this. A crisis is you have lost your job, and you cannot make the mortgage payment anymore, and you cannot rent anymore, and you're going to wind up being evicted, foreclosed on, evicted, and homeless. That is a crisis. An inconvenience is that couple we were talking last time where the two kids are fighting because they're getting too old to share a bedroom together. That is an inconvenience. When sellers are inconvenienced, they don't sell their houses because they have to. Right? A crisis makes you sell a house. Right? Crashes happen when sellers are in crisis. We don't have people in crisis. We don't have homeowners currently in crisis. Now, maybe one or two people, grandma just died and the heirs are selling the house, and they will sell it for whatever they can get out of it as quickly as possible. They call Open Door or Offer Pad. Or they call a real estate agent. A real estate agent goes, yeah, I got an investor who'll pick up anything. Give me a call. That's gone. But that really big crash has to have, at the same time, that high unemployment where people can't make their mortgage. All right. Rates resetting. Because remember the adjustable rates that everybody said was a bad idea, but people did it anyways? That can be making a crisis happen because now your mortgage payment went up because your interest rate went up and you're still making exactly the same money you had before. You're not unemployed. Your expenses just got too high. All right? This is where crashes come from. All right? So once we get the interest rates all straightened out, okay, once we get inflation under control, we could see going back to, please, a nice steady 4 to 6 to 8% year-over-year appreciation, which would be considered a normal market. We can get that with low inventory if we have a low amount of buyers. All right. So if our buyers and our sellers hit back out and get closer to each other, and by getting closer to each other, we see this number get down into the low hundreds. All right. 105, 110, maybe even up to 115. And then we'll see a slow, steady growth. Remember, that was one of my solutions for the housing crisis last week. Right? We need to get this run up under control and go back to normal historical house appreciation. We need to see payroll go up. We have that element right there. Right? What's the third thing that we need? We need interest rates get fly again under control. So what else? Oh, it's really hard to talk when you're watching this fly buzz around me. I know you can't see it, but I can. All right. And I'm very attentive to motion out of the side of my eyes. And so if a fly flies by, I'm like my brain just turns off and I start tracking it. And you see little targeted devices in my head overlay over what I'm seeing, much like when I'm out watching kids and their pets around water. Each one of them has a little data marker on the top of them, like they're little submarines or something, right? And I'm, reading too much Tom Clancy. I know where every one of them is, along with the dogs, as long as there's large pools of water. Like that one over there that I am not driving into because I'm aware of that also, right? And I want you guys to have a really, really good weekend. Thanks for sticking around for me this long. Of course, as always, questions, complaints, concerns, comments, show notes below. And if you were to subscribe, that'd be awesome. Have a great weekend.